Basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skiddy, and Malley for the Insight NBA show.
G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast. I am your host, Skiddy IFS, and today I am joined by Mustache Brother in Crime, Malley. How are you, brother?
Mate, your mustache looks like it sits in your face, right? My mustache looks like one of those fake nose mustache combos. All I need is the big glasses, and I'd be a bloody caricature.
Oh, mate, I'm telling you, if I could I want the mo where, it's a real thick one, Ned Flanders style. That's what I want. I just can't get enough up here, but that's all right. I'm still happy with how the growth works down here. I nearly got it. I nearly cut it completely off today, but no, I can't do that. No, it's all right, mate. The one thing that you guys will like the results of is our show today. And today we are talking about guys that are in jeopardy, Malley. Guys that you believe that could be losing minutes or starting positions to guys that are on the up or coming from behind. I'm calling them librarians because they're coming from behind and they're doing it silently. But we're the ones that are going to identify them and tell you how to get ahead of these librarians because there are guys that may be a little bit valued lower in your eyes. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. I'm still trying to figure out your reference. I'm used to podcasting with G where he says absurd stuff all the time, and even I can't figure this one out.
They come up behind them quietly like a librarian. It's an AFL reference, but that's all right. We'll get
okay, mate. Wrong sport for me. Yeah, I got a lot to learn.
Fine. That's fine. It's Australian. It's an Australian thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
when
you're worried about these guys.
About it. Yeah. Look, I think everyone in this list here. I'm looking through my list now, and I'm thinking probably there's a couple of names that may end up taking minutes from the get-go, from night one. And then the other half of my list, I think it might be a slow transition, and we'll see that crossover. And by the end of the year, the takeover will be complete. So yeah, we'll have a look through. I think it's just guys that temper your expectations with the guy who's potentially on the way out with minutes, and maybe raise your expectations for the guy who might be coming into minutes. Take them at the minutes that they're at the moment, and hope that they're going to trend in that right direction. You're going to get a little bit of value there because that's what playing fantasy basketball is all about.
Bloody oath it is, mate. But before we get cracking on into that, we're going to give a shout out to our day ones, and that is the Standard Squeeze. Get in there if you want to be able to drink responsibly and conveniently. You use the promo code IFS15 to get 15% off your next order. They do some absolute beautiful stuff with apparel. You can see up here, we've got the Standard Squeeze bottle up there where you can put straight into that, and then you squeeze it, get the perfect amount out. I've got that straight in the 4-in-1 tonight where you keep your beers cold and coffee warm. Malley, absolutely fantastic stuff. And they love us to talk fantasy sports. And that's exactly what we're going to get stuck into now, because the first guy that we're going to be talking about tonight that you've highlighted is a big one. He's a guy that's going around the 65 mark in most drafts now. Although he can be a very reliable center, do you believe that this man in Chicago, Nikola Vucevic, is dropping down draft boards because you're worried about a man coming up behind him?
Yes and no. I think that he's definitely going to get his minutes. I just think there's a culture change happening over at Chicago. I think they're in a position where they're looking to their youth. I'm worried that Nikola Vucevic doesn't really fit that mold. He's an older guy. He's obviously on the downward climb of his career. We saw a little bit about that fall off last year. You're right. He probably is still a decent value at that 60 to 65 mark. And for certain builds where you're not really interested in blocks, he's going to get you a good amount of rebounds, and his percentages have always been pretty good. But they picked up Jalen Smith and that just kind of rang a little security alarm bell in the back of my head, going, "Hold on, what's going on here?" Like they're trying to get someone young. He was a logjam boy over at Indiana,
Yes.
where he had some decent games, but when you're behind Miles Turner and out there with Isaiah, you're in a position where you probably, I think, what was he playing? 20 minutes or something a night, which just wasn't enough. But we saw what he could do. So yes, I wouldn't want to take Nikola Vucevic any earlier than that. Where he goes, if they move him, is another question. Um, yeah, I think that Jalen Smith is going to start eating some of his minutes. I think they're going to get blown out a lot of games, and that very much will depend on what happens and how well and how interested Levine is. But let's say that Levine has a sookie or doesn't want to play or has another apparently season-ending injury. I just think they might roll Jalen Smith out, or at least in the second half, where they're like, well, this game means nothing to us. So yes, and I like Jalen Smith too. I think as a fantasy guy, he's quite appealing. So he's one I'm going to keep my eye on.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in the aspect that if Sticks does get the minutes, then he can be a player of note. I still think that I've just got more, I got more faith in Vooch to be able to say it there. Like, in his last 3 seasons, per game, he's been the 11th, 29th, and 26th ranked player. And then last year he was 50th, so he dropped off a little bit there. But still, 18 points, 10 rebounds. Defensive stats never, but as you said, the percentage is still there. I still just feel like I can see what you're saying, that they've gone out and gotten Jalen Smith, but I think he's more there to learn off of Vooch now, and there's a reason why Indiana were like, we don't care if he walks. There's a reason why Indiana were like, we're not sure if he's the backup center behind Miles Turner. Because remember, he lost that to Isaiah Jackson, and they tried to play him as a power forward. Then they went out and got Pascal Siakam and went, screw it, we don't want him. So maybe Chicago do value him higher. I can see that there might be a bit of a minutes hair goings there. But
in no way am I saying take Jalen Smith over Nikola Vucevic. What I'm saying here is that you've got to consider that in the puzzle when you're putting the pieces together of what's Nikola Vucevic's value going to be this season. I just feel like Jalen Smith wants his little piece of the pie, and it's going to be more of the pie than Nikola's had to give up at any other point in his tenure with the Chicago Bulls.
Okay, I like that, mate. One that I need you to convince me about here, Malley, and that is we're going over to Houston. Talk to me through Jabari Smith Jr. Where's the worry coming for him?
Well, they've obviously got Tari Eason, who's had a lot of trouble staying healthy in his young career. But I think they really like what he can do over in Houston. They love his defensive game. Not that that's a liability with Jabari Smith Jr. And again, I'm not saying that we shut up shop and pull the shutters down on Jabari Smith. I mean, what's he in his fourth season this year? Third. So he's a young man. His first season was disappointing. Last season, in his second season, he brought it together a little bit. He might get that third season bump in confidence. They're a very deep team. They've got a few mouths to feed there. But I just have a feeling that with Tari Eason potentially being healthy, they're going to try and play him a little bit more often. Maybe they're going to give Jabari Smith more backup center minutes so he can fill in behind, God, what's his name? Şengün. So he might fill in behind Şengün while Şengün's off, and that might give Tari Eason a little bit more time at power forward. So again, and I am not in any way advocating for you to consider Tari Eason over Jabari Smith Jr. What I'm saying is, I reckon he's going to chew up a few of those extra minutes. I also think this is going to be a very telling season for Jabari Smith. He's a high draft pick, and I think Houston want to see what he's going to be able to do this year. I think they also know they've got a bit of a prize piece in Tari Eason, and they want to see what he can do, and they want to probably roll him out with some of the starters and, let him play meaningful minutes. So, yes, I think that's probably just that considered has moved him back maybe 5 places more than what I had him, just thinking it's a tough unit.
Yeah.
Tari might get some more minutes, and that rolled him up in my standings and pushed Jabari back just a tad, a smidge.
Yeah, I mean, I could say that too. But the other thing that we got to worry about is Steven Adams is now on this team as well. So there goes some of the defense of the center backup minutes that you would assume Jabari would get. I agree with you on that. There is an absolute logjam there in Houston. It's a good thing for them to have because they have a shitload of depth. And is that what you're saying as well with this man, Dylan Brooks, where you're having a little bit of worry for him? Also, too, though, when we are talking about Dylan Brooks, it's not like he's the best fantasy option and you're going to draft him. I don't believe he's draftable, but it's those streamable nights where we look at him and go, instead of maybe getting, 38, 36 minutes from Dylan Brooks, that's now down to 30 or 32 because they do have the likes of Tari Eason. They do have the likes of Amen Thompson. They do have Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Steven Adams. Like, that is a bloody good bench unit.
Cam Whitmore's exactly the guy that I want to talk about. Like, they know they're not going to hold on to Dylan Brooks forever. He came in. He's helped change the culture. He's been the goodest boy while he's been there. And, obviously he's taken his kind of enforcer title with him as he's come over from the Grizzlies. And he's been valuable to them, less valuable to us in the fantasy community. I mean, he's not worth very much to us. He doesn't do enough. But again, it's less me saying in this case, think about where you're going to draft Dylan Brooks, because I'd say the answer to that is probably nowhere. He's one of those guys who gets a huge amount of minutes, but then doesn't do a lot from a fantasy point of view with it. And maybe consider with your last pick a Cam Whitmore. He's not a shiny new toy. Like he's this is his second year now. Is he second year or third? No, second. He's one behind Jabari so I think, with Cam, they're obviously very different players. Like Dylan Brooks is the defensive piece, and Cam Whitmore's just a gun. He's a shooter. He's a gunner. He's just going to make his shots. He looked really aggressive last year too. So yeah, again, I think he wants some of Dylan Brooks' minutes, and I think maybe not in the same vein as a Kuminga and Kerr situation, but I think he's going to be asking for a bit more of a role this year. And I think he wants to show that he's relevant in a team, as you said, that's super deep and has Reed Shepherd coming in and Amen Thompson as well, who, they've decided on at least what's it called? Yahoo. They've already decided that he's not a guard. He's just purely a forward now. So maybe it's because Reed's on the team.
Interesting. We'll have to get in contact there and be like, well, the bloke's been a point guard for his whole career, and he still did it at times last year, but whatever. That's each to their own. We still have big thanks for Yahoo. Love their work that they do over there. Malley, we move across from that's right. Dan Titus, great man. Shout out to you. We move across to the New Orleans Pelicans now, Malley. And you've highlighted Brandon Ingram. Now, you're going to have to run me through this one because I'm guessing that you're going to be talking about the lengthy logjam of defense and shooting and then play creation that we have here, because obviously Ingram is the play creator. We've got Trey Murphy III is the big-time shooter boy, and we got Herb Jones as the defensive man. Is that where you're kind of going with that little kind of forwardy kind of logjam that we're looking at?
I think so too. And you've got two bona fide starting pieces in Herb Jones and Trey Murphy III, who, as far as I can figure out, aren't in the starting unit. You've got DeJounte who's going to come in. You've got CJ here at the 2. Yeah. You've got Brandon at the 3. You've got Zion at the 4, and you've got Mystery Bag at the 5 at the moment. Yeah, probably Tice or one of the young pieces, which by my calculations keeps Herb and Trey on the bench. I think a little bit like Vooch, Brooks, that Brandon Ingram is probably the third spoke in that wheel, where he's a guy that his time in New Orleans, I think, is coming to an end. I think they're not that the keys to the castle are never in Zion's hands, but I think they're taking more away from Brandon Ingram. He wasn't very impressive last season. He's always seemingly hurt. Not that Herb Jones and Trey Murphy haven't been without their injuries in their young careers. But yeah, I just feel like Brandon Ingram's going to lose minutes, and they're going to go to Herb Jones and Trey to get them in those 4 positions.
Okay. I like it. I also like the switchability that the New Orleans Pelicans are able to provide. And I think Ingram's also pretty valuable to that piece. I agree with you. I reckon the minutes could go down at points, but I reckon we could probably see Center Zion at points with Ingram and Herb Jones kind of around the market, those lengthy kind of guys. I think that we're going to have to see a bit more defense from Brandon Ingram this season just because they don't have Valanciunas down there. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one and it's a hard one, but I think it's a great point for you to bring up about it that we can have a little bit of signs here about Brandon Ingram especially. We go across to Golden State, and you've highlighted a big one here, and it's a guy that a lot of people will be able to get around that 100 mark. And we're talking about big Draymond Green, the anti-French power forward for the Warriors. Who do you believe is the man that is targeting for Draymond Green's minutes?
It's going to be Trayce Jackson-Davis. Again, we got a taste of what we could see in the future as fantasy owners of Trayce Jackson-Davis last year. I don't know whether they push Draymond down to the 4 and maybe let Trayce Jackson play some more minutes of the 5. I don't know whether Draymond starts at the 5 and then rolls to the 4 and Trayce and he play next to each other. I don't know if Trayce comes in behind and replaces Dre while he sits. All I know is I feel like the minutes are going to decrease for Draymond Green. I mean, he's not Curry age, but he's no spring chicken himself. And that they're going to start moving into some Trayce Jackson minutes, especially when they've got pods playing. You know, they've got youth elsewhere on the court. Obviously, Curry's not going to lose his minutes. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll really depend what's going to happen with Wiggins. But, yes, I'd say that Dre's going to take a bit of a hit, maybe just a couple of minutes, but that's all it takes to, you know, potentially move someone 10 fantasy places or more, because we know that, you know, you've got to be on the court to be able to rack up the stats. And I think Trayce is going to come in. I see Yahoo's projections have Trayce Jackson-Davis looking like Wembanyama out there in the blocks department. They've like doubled his blocks from last season, so they obviously think he's going to get some minutes at center. They're very, very favourable of old Tracy.
They were too, but he also he did have pretty good per minute block numbers. But come on, we can't be comparing him to Victor. I think the other guy that we have to be watching out for here is the cum bucket, Jonathan Kuminga. I think that he could be the one that could also push Draymond Green to the side. Remember, they've also got Kevin Looney. So Trayce, we know, doesn't shoot threes. It's very hard for him to be paired next to Looney, or it's almost impossible. We didn't see it at all last season either. So, yeah, I can say that where Dre maybe loses a bit. And we know that Draymond needs a lot of minutes to be able to be fantasy relevant because he's around that 100 mark, but he gets the assists, rebounds, steals, and blocks. We need him to be able to be on the floor to be able to accumulate those stats. Otherwise, yeah, it's night-night for Dre, much like he wants to do to Rudy Gobert.
And 100%, like maybe, by pushing Draymond down to the 4 and Kuminga's going, absolutely not. Like, I'd like some time. I want the 4 that, just pushes him. When the 2 forces are coming at him from either side, it's going to potentially push him onto the bench for a few more minutes than Draymond would like. He also has a good chance to get suspended again, and then it won't matter, and then they can play Kuminga and Trayce next to each other, and we're happy as.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. The suspension is probably coming. When does he play the Wolves? Because, yeah, it's over there. Look, let's go on to one. I think everyone, if you've played if this is your first year of fantasy basketball, welcome. Welcome to be with us. If it's not, I think you've been hearing about this situation for probably about the past 3 or 4 years, and that is Capella, the starting center for the Hawks, and Onyeka Okongwu coming to take his minutes. It hasn't happened yet. Is this the year?
It feels like it, doesn't it? Often with teams like this, when changes occur, you've got Jalen Johnson moving into greater minutes and a greater role. He's going to get more chop touches. He's going to put up more shots. Hopefully his defensive numbers also improve. And then, with the removal of DeJounte Murray, that frees up action for everyone in the Hawks lineup. I just think, while moves are being made and the team dynamic is changing, now seems like the right time for Onyeka to make his move into the starting five. Last year probably wouldn't work. They were just still trying to sort things out with Murray, so they probably wanted to keep everything else the way it was. But you can tell that Clint's that one step slow now. He's definitely not Houston Rockets Clint Capella anymore. And Onyeka Okongwu, although in the time that he got to start, probably was a little underwhelming, we've still been able to see what he can do. So it's not thinking, oh, what can this man do? It's, can the man do what we've already seen him do in a bigger role, and and get those block numbers back up and be a bit more of an offensive threat. Look like you want to play basketball a little bit more, because he was kind of flat at a lot of times last year, and that probably let Clint hold on to his role for longer than maybe the Hawks had expected.
Yep, I 100% agree there. And there's a reason why we are, a lot of fantasy analysts are so high on Onyeka Okongwu when this is able to be in, because you can't get the points, rebounds, good blocks, but he doesn't kill you from the free throw percentage. That's the main thing that we kind of look at in that aspect. So it's basically Clint Capella, copy and pasted, except your rebounds are a little bit down, but your free throws are a little bit better. That's basically where you're looking at with Onyeka Okongwu. Let's see if this is finally the year, because, it's been that long talking about it. An interesting one here. I need you to walk me through this one, because this one's John Collins at the Jazz, right? And I know what you're going to say, and it's going to be Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler had the starting spot last year, and then John Collins took it from him like it was nothing. And then they started playing. They didn't want to play Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler. They wanted to play, but they were happy to play Markkanen, Olynyk, and Collins before they traded him, Olynyk, off to Toronto. And then they still didn't give Kessler the minutes. Is Kessler going to overtake John Collins again this season?
Possibly so, and it's hard to tell how much Utah care about doing any sort of winning. So they're probably actually happier to get Walker Kessler out there and treat him as a center and a piece of their starting five. I don't particularly love what John Collins does. I don't run the Hawks lineup, so it doesn't really matter what I think.
Yes.
Nor do I think Walker Kessler, and we're a fantasy show speaking about his fantasy value. He's very kind of mono-valued. He doesn't do a lot. Yes, he gets blocks, but since he was getting blocks, we've had two guys come into the league who've changed the blocks category up, with Chet and Wemby. And the things that make him all his strong positives, like his field goal percentage, rebounds aren't too bad, but his block numbers are so kind of middled out and kind of become so much less impressive when you look at the other categories that he can't do anything in. He doesn't get to the line, and when he does, he doesn't hit. He can't hit threes. He doesn't get assists at all. Once he gets the ball, he goes, well, I've got to make my shot. I can't pass it off to anybody else, because if they passed it to me, that means everyone else on the team has touched the ball and none of them can get a shot. So it's got to be me to just try and big dog it in. I think, to be fair, this one has been me putting down John Collins having Walker Kessler nibbling at his heels. Has probably come down to a couple of things. I've noticed, when you're hearing conversation and reading that maybe Kessler comes back into being the starting center. And then in the drafts, I've been paying particular attention to him. And everybody's, even after what happened last year, and which really would have scared people off, and people were lost rounds and rounds of value by picking up Walker Kessler, he's still going so high this year. Contextually high, and he's going higher than John Collins. So what I don't know, I'm trying to fill the gaps in from what I'm hearing and seeing, and everything's trending Walker Kessler. So people who might know more than us seem to know something about this man and his fantasy value. And I'm riding that wave a little bit, I've got to be honest.
Right, that's fair enough. I mean, look, yeah, he's going around that 60-odd mark. He was 103rd overall last year. And, yeah, it's just because the minutes were down because he only did play 23 minutes a night when John Collins came in. And there was nights where he didn't even play. He was DMP'd. And maybe Will Hardy's just not happy with him. I know why people are trying to still have that Swindon because those blocks that he has are valuable at that point in the draft. But, yeah, I don't know. I look at those points as well where I go, maybe it is just John Collins. Maybe John Collins is the guy that works better for the Jazz, works better with Will Hardy. But I digress. We'll see how that goes, but I'm a little bit lesser on Walker Kessler. That's a nice
digressing is how we make a show, mate.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah, that's only
treat yourself to a digression.
Let's move on to the Nets, and we got two guys here, which is Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, it is a bit of a logjam when we talk about the Nets. We can look at it in the same light as the Houston Rockets, just they are going to be shitloads worse. How do you see the starting lineup working? Are we worried about any of these guys? I kind of personally think Cam Johnson might get traded. I don't know if they still see the right place for him there. Even Dorian Finney-Smith could also too.
Yeah, I'm surprised Dorian Finney-Smith's still on the team at all. I don't really understand his value through NBA eyes or through pure fantasy eyes.
It's the same eyes as how you value Dylan Brooks as being that guy that'll be there, stick up for the teammates, does all the nitty-gritty crap, does the stuff that all the stars don't want to do. He's that physical kind of player. One of those guys that you just need on your team. Like, I am sure that Boston or the Knicks or the Sixers or the Cavs or any of these teams, they would be chomping at the bit to get Dorian Finney-Smith on their team.
Yeah, you think so? Maybe they haven't offered the right price for Brooklyn to be enticed. I mean, Brooklyn after the having their big three absolutely just slip through their fingers like bloody sand at the beach, are in a position now where they think they can probably get Luka Doncic for Dorian Finney-Smith. They're probably absolutely panicked that they can't let anyone else go without
5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, though. So they've done well there.
True. Yes. Yep. Yeah, they got their goods there. But the guy I want to talk about, maybe chomping at both those guys' heels, is Jalen Wilson. Like another Jalen. We love a Jalen in the NBA. But he's a Jalen that looked really good at Summer League. Like he looks impressive. He obviously has a future, and this seems like a team who's willing to roll the dice this year and letting people showcase their abilities. Obviously they're going to seemingly unleash Cam Thomas and let him be a big offensive focus. And, I just think that the way that Cam Johnson played last year when he had opportunities, he was very underwhelming. And I know that obviously with Mikal Bridges this year gone, it opens up a lot of time and minutes for a lot of guys. But Jalen Wilson is one that I'm keeping my eye on. I just want to see what he does, and I think they'll make more minutes for him. And Cam Johnson and probably a Dorian Finney-Smith will be the ones who are, who have to give up some minutes for him to be able to have a little bit more.
I can definitely say that, and I think Cam Johnson needs to play with good passing point guards. So if Ben Simmons is there, he can space the floor well with Ben Simmons. If not, then I'm definitely I'm with you because Smith can do it. Wilson can definitely do a lot more than that. We got one that we're going to be looking at here for the Miami Heat, and that is Jovic or Jaquez Jr. Who gets the starting spot there? Or do neither of them get the starting spot? They go with Kevin Love again, or do they go with the man that one of my favorite rookies this season? That's Kel'el Ware coming up. I think Kel'el might just go the backup minutes at the center behind Bam, but I still think Kevin Love gets the start here alongside with Jimmy Butler, Bam, Hero, and Terry Rozier. Do you see it in any other way? Because I know Jaquez is getting drafted. Like, he is a late round. People are still having a crack on him. I don't know about it.
Yeah, I think it might be Nicola's turn to get a run. I think they might lean towards him. I think that they're just going to keep Triple J there for the inevitability of Jimmy Butler falling to pieces
Yeah.
because it's happened so many seasons in a row now
Yeah.
that he's per game. Like what is he? He'd be around like the low 50s as an average over like maybe the last 5 years. I remember him sticking out in our big draft board as being a guy that in that time has had a woeful run of injury luck. I think they've done as much as they can with the break glass in case of emergency around Kevin Love. I don't know
Yeah.
how much more they can ask for that man. Like he's definitely playing above his pay grade and playing above where he actually is in his career. I think they're going to probably move into Nicola, and I reckon they're going to see what he can do this year.
Yep. I agree with you big time there that if Jimmy Butler goes down, Homie Hackers Jr. is going to be like on pretty much everyone's teams as soon as Jimmy Butler goes down as a waiver wire pickup. I agree with you there. I can also see Jovic taking over from Kevin Love. They definitely need a little bit more height there because Jimmy's not massive. Scary Terry and Tyler Hero aren't defenders. They're more shot creating scorers. So they need a bit more size there. I agree with you that it could be Jovic over Kevin Love. I just think that Love might get the start. Jovic might get the minutes. So I think it's a good shout there from you, mate. We go across to Indy. Just a quick one that we want to bring up here. Nemhard and Neesmith. We do know that they were the starters in the playoffs for the Indiana Pacers. We do have to remember that Ben Mathurin was injured throughout this time. Ben Mathurin was the starting shooting guard for Indiana before he got injured. There is a way where I can kind of go, well, maybe it's Nemhard that takes a bit of a hit. We don't get these streamable games where Nemhard was going like what? I think he had a 30-10 game at one point or a 30-8, and it's just ridiculous. I don't think we're going to be able to see that kind of level. The other thing that we have to worry about as well is that Jarris Walker is being played and taught as a 3, not a 4, which is where he was drafted at, which could smell danger for Neesmith. I don't think that's something that we have to worry about this season, but the Mathurin one is definitely the key to that piece in Indiana.
I don't think you need to lose too much sleep over it. All the guys that you've listed there are outside the 150 for me anyway. So I think but
if it's Mathurin, right? If he gets 30 minutes, where else are you getting scoring like Mathurin and free throws at the high percentage that Mathurin's able to accumulate that late in a draft? There's no one else that's bringing you that.
That's true. I don't know if the free throws were a flash in the pan because he couldn't really, even before he went out last year, couldn't really reproduce what he did in his rookie season. So if he can do that, absolutely, like no one else that late in the draft could do that. But yeah, I just think, I mean, if you're looking for pure upside and you had to make a choice between those 3 guys, because you must have an Indiana Pacers guy because it's like in your terms and conditions of your league, then I probably would choose Benedict because I think he has the highest ceiling out of the 3 guys. Unless we get playoff Nemhard, who was a bit of a stud. So, yeah,
God,
it was great.
Again, that was saucy. But what I'm saying about with Mathurin, right? He averaged 30 minutes a night in the last 2 months before he got injured. He averaged 17.5 points per game, 2.5 threes, 5 free throw attempts, and he went at 80%. And he also averaged a steal, which is what put him up a little bit. And the usage is high. So that's the one that I'm saying. Ben Mathurin does get this starting shooting guard spot or the bulk majority of the minutes. That's when we start looking at him. Because also, too, you're not finding a higher pace team than the Indiana Pacers. Push, push, push. Get the ball in the damn basket. Screw defense. Yeah. So I like that one there. Let's go to our last one, and we're having a bit of a look here, and it's in Detroit. Now, I'm not getting excited about anything in Detroit, Malley. We know that this is the season, though, that Jaden Ivey has to pull his finger out. Coach change with JB Bickerstaff. If Jaden Ivey ain't doing it, he is going to sling him to the bench so goddamn quickly, and he's going to throw Asar Thompson, Malik Beasley, Hardaway, get some shooting in there. Ivey will be coming off the bench. Where would you be drafting Ivey, or are you just letting him slide on by?
I'm terrified by his percentages. Like, I don't want to punt both my percentages, and that's kind of what you get when you get Jaden. But I also feel with Ivy, he's another guy that you get late who really could put points up for this team. You've got Duran, who doesn't really want to score. I mean, he will. And you've got Asar, that's not really in his wheelhouse. Cade obviously has to do a lot of scoring. You've got Harris, who will score, but he hasn't had to do a lot of that in the last few years just because he's been next to Harden and Embiid, and then Embiid and Maxey. So, he might have to remember that part of his game. If I'm doing punt all percentages, which is very unlikely unless I'm extremely confident in all my my counting stats. I don't know. I think maybe late and see what happens. But I think you're right. I think Bickerstaff won't. Bickerstaff owes him nothing, so he'll just turf the fella.
I agree. I think that he either needs to learn to shoot, he needs to learn to put the ball in the basket, or he needs to learn to defend, because Jaden Ivey last year was a negative in every single fantasy category, besides threes, where he was average. That's not what I want in my starting shooting guard. I think that there's a genuine chance that they could just lean straight into Beasley. I think he's probably the one, actually. Makes the most sense, spacing the floor there next to Cade, and especially with the Sar, and actually could also be Fontecchio. He's the other one as well. So that's definitely wait and see. But I think Ivy's definitely the one that he's probably going to see majority share on the bench.
Yeah, I like my teams with the point guard being the shortest guy on the court too. It always must be an OCD thing. I don't like the point guard being this tall and the shooting guard being this tall, and then you go up again to the small forward. Maybe I need to see somebody about that. There's probably pills for that, but there's another reason that Ivy's not making my team. Not at the shooting guard; he's too tiny.
I 100% agree there with you, Malley. But mate, that is the guys. That is all we got time for today, ladies and gentlemen. These are the guys that we believe that you should be watching out for, that they may lose minutes, they may lose their starting job, that guys are coming up to be able to push behind them. Keep an eye out when you are drafting that. There is still guys to be able to take advantage of in your drafts when they get into the positions, especially like Nikola Vucevic. He's the main one that is dropping and dropping and dropping. When you get to that 65, if he suits your team, absolutely have a crack at him. But don't overtake him. Don't overshoot for him, because there is a chance that Sticks may be able to knock him off his perch. But if you get him around the 70 mark, it's an extreme value. And then you don't worry about it if he does it, because then you just drop him and then see you later. You move on to the next guy. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you in the next one. I've been Skiddy with the Mo. This has been Malley with the Mo. Keep it boys.